Hello there, pretty people of the internet, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Annika, and today I am going to talk about cramming for an exam. Normally, I use this channel to promote good study habits for like the long game, but right now, you have a final coming up tomorrow, in 2 days, in 3 days, and you haven't studied yet. So let's quickly get to it. Hopefully this video will be short and sweet and to the point so that you can get studying. The first thing I want you to do is to set up everything and prepare to cram. So what I want you to grab is your syllabus. The syllabus will be your study guide. It hopefully has information about what you need to know, the testing format of the exam that you have to take, the time you have, instructions, things like that. The second thing you need to grab is practice exams and practice questions, previous tests and questions that your professor or teacher has given to you or that you have found online that are relevant. Next, you need to grab your notes, your handouts, your previous homework assignments, and essays and midterms and your textbook. This is going to be what we are studying from. This is going to be where we get our materials. Lastly, grab all the stuff you're going to need. If you're going to need your laptop, pen and paper, an energy drink, a cup of coffee, some water, some snacks, music, flashcards, if you have them. Grab everything, find a study spot that you can sit at for a while, sit down, get to it. The first thing I want you to do is to do a practice test. You just need to assess what you know, what the test will look like, what you don't know, everything like that. This one might be a little controversial, but I want you to perfect your understanding of things you know fairly well. So if you feel like you know an area about 80%, I want you to get that 100% because that last 20% is usually where all the testable material is. These are like small exceptions or like weird little rules that are important, that are very testable. Like most people know the majority of the stuff. You need to go the extra mile and learn that little bit extra stuff. Also, if you study this at the beginning of your night, you're going to get the confidence to think that you can learn the rest of the material for the rest of your study session. If you know this material, at least you'll get all the points possible on that material. Now, I said perfect your understanding. You don't actually need perfect knowledge. I just want you to spend about an hour going over this material so that you know those small little rules and exceptions that you always forget so that you can get those points. Next, you need to cover all the material that you don't know. And for most things, I do not want you to start at the beginning of the course. Most likely you've covered the beginning of the course many times. That stuff is fundamental. You should know that by now. You probably know that by now. So I want you to start more in the middle and towards the end. That's going to be the meat of the material, especially if your material builds on one another. That's going to be where you need to focus. Now, where in your material should you start looking first? Start with the syllabus. If you have a good syllabus, your professor or teacher should have asked, or specifically under each lecture and homework assignment and everything due for that class, have said what they want you to learn. They might have even posted some research questions for that lecture. So I want you to look at your syllabus and see if you can answer those questions in your own words. Do you know what this topic is about? If the syllabus only gives you a topic or a general headline, does that word trigger in your memory other things? Write down all the things that it triggers, and just like briefly, like don't write out an essay, but just write down all the things that you remember or don't remember. If you go like, oh, I know there's 3 things, but I only remember 2 of them. Good, you know 66%. Write that down. We'll go back to your notes, to your homework assignments, and fill in the rest. When you come across things in your syllabus that you do not know, this is when I want you to turn to your homework assignments, midterm, things you've done for class notes, handouts you've gotten on the topic. Look there first. The textbook should be like your backup. It has way too much information for you to learn. It's hard to shift through. The things that you have already marked as being important in your notes, in your homework, in handouts, that's going to be where you want to find and spend like the most time. If something is on the syllabus and it's not in your homework, not on a midterm, not on any assignments, not a lecture handout, then you want to turn to like lecture slides, Canvas pages, recorded lectures. And if it's not even there, then your textbook, it's not even there. Go to Google. Most teachers and professors test you on stuff that they continuously talk about in class. If you're taking good notes, that's something that should come up multiple times, something they've spent a lot of time discussing or clarifying. That's most likely what you're going to be tested on, so that's where you want to spend your time. If it's relevant to your course, use Quizlet and do not make your own flashcards. We do not have time for that. If you're cramming, you don't have time to make your own flashcards. What you can do is that you can go on Quizlet and you can use the search function and you can search for your course. I want you to take out that piece of paper and that pen that I told you to grab in the beginning and write down everything that you don't get, that you often mess up, that you often remember. When you're testing yourself as you go, to write down from your syllabus or think about, okay, do I know what this is actually wanting to test? Do I know the material under this subheading? I want you to write down on this cheat sheet all those things, all those small nuances in the rules that you often get wrong but you know are very important. Write those down. Pretend that this one sheet of paper is something you could bring into the exam with you, and you want to write down all the important things. Not like the overall big things that you remember and that are easy, but the small things that you often forget but you know are important. When you go through your homework assignments, the syllabus, your book, whatever you have to resort to, I want you to pretend like you can only read it one time. Because we're cramming, most likely you only have time to read it one time, but I want you to read it very carefully and read it to remember. This might take a little bit of time because I want you to sit down and try to memorize the things that are important that you are reading as you're reading them. Don't read and go, okay, I got it, I know it, I'll memorize it later. There is no later. This is later. Speaking of memorizing, here are a few of my favorite ways to memorize material quickly. The first one is acronym and mnemonic devices. For acronyms, you take the first letter of every word and you make a new word out of it, a new word that is easier for you to remember. That usually works if you don't have to remember things in a certain order, so if you just have to remember like 5 elements of something, do an acronym to remember that. If you have to remember something in order or an acronym just doesn't make sense with the letters provided to you, use a mnemonic device. That will be taking the first letter of every word and then coming up with a new word. So you make a full sentence and you have the words listed in order. Another one of my favorite memorization techniques is the route or place. Some people call it like the palace technique, whatever you want to call it. The idea is that you take a building or a route that you're very familiar with, for instance, the layout of your house or the road you take to school. And then for every sort of point you need, you put something in the different spaces. For instance, you will put something in every room of your house that you need to memorize. That way you can mentally walk through your house and you can trigger all these different things in the rooms. This works great for timelines. It also works great for like ranking things, for instance, the sizes of countries. I recommend that everything you remember is weird, that it moves, that it has color, and that it has sound, because you remember those things better. That is one of my favorite memorization techniques, and I really recommend it if you're at this point and you really just have to cram and remember things. Use pen and paper to quickly connect different ideas in ways that make sense to you. If you use mind maps, if you use a table or chart to compare things, if you just take little notes, arrows here and there, whatever you do, don't make it pretty. This is not the time. Just write things out to get that muscle memory. Those are my like most basic, you have to do these tips for cramming. Anyways, good luck on cramming, good luck on your exam. If you have a little more time, I recommend checking out some of my other videos that will give you more comprehensive study tips. Next week, I'm planning on uploading a video on about how to write essays when you're very close to the deadline. So make sure that you subscribe to get a notification when that video shows up next week. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Bye! That really stressed me out.